So I wanted to make a short video today about going over materials for the Painting 1 class. So the first thing, mostly I wanted to talk about brushes, but we'll put those off for a minute. The first thing that you need when you're going to make a painting is you need something to paint on. So this is a stretch canvas, it's kind of small. The class is going to use something a little bit, typically a little bit bigger. Our smaller paintings can be like this, 11 by 14. The bigger paintings, the ones that we're kind of doing for real, are going to be more like 18 by 24, 16 by 20. But you don't have to paint on canvas. If you can find canvas boards that you like, if you can find a pad of canvas paper. I don't have those things around, I just have this one canvas that the Old Holland people sent me when I ordered some things. But you can also paint on wood. You can paint on like a piece of plywood or masonite. You have to get some latex house paint and prime it first. And that would just be putting 2 or 3 layers on the surface that you're going to paint on, usually sanding in between layers. And I can do a video on that later if need be. But anyway, for the most part, students tend to buy their supports. So I'm showing you the canvas. Now, the paints that we're going to be using this semester, you guys got a list. And I wanted to talk about the difference between a couple different whites. So this is, the brand name is Permalba. This is a titanium white. And it's going to be inexpensive and the kind of white that you'll probably get. It doesn't have to be Permalba. It can be Winsor Newton or whatever brand happens to be at the store. Around here we don't have a huge selection. But the colors that are on the list can be bought in a certain order, and I believe I gave you that order already. But you got to start out with raw umber. So Gamblin's not a bad brand. I have a sneaking suspicion that they add things to the paint to make it dry slower so that you'll buy their dryer. But this raw umber has been doing well for me as of late. But anyway, there's a bunch of colors that you need right away. Raw umber, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, your white. And then I forgot about the other white. The other white that you might end up getting is lead white, flake white, Kremnitz white. They all kind of Flemish white. They all mean the same thing. And they're just going to handle better and be better dryers. But they're also like exponentially more expensive. So the problem that I have with titanium white is that it tends to, it just dries so slow, it kind of makes a lot of things more difficult in painting. But anyway, that's what students usually use. This is a palette knife. It's actually a painting knife, but I use it to mix my colors. The next thing that you need is a palette, and this is my palette. I prefer a wooden palette, and you can see my colors are laid out. This is I made this one for landscape painting a while back, and then I made a better one, so I stopped using this one. But you can use for a palette really anything that the paint won't absorb into. I like the wooden palette because it has it's just, to me, it's just cooler. It's old school. So if you're using a wooden palette, you actually need a little boiled linseed oil or linseed oil of really any kind. And then when you're done using it, you just rub the oil into the wood. And you rub the oil into the wood a few times to start with, and then after you use it and then clean up, you just, every time you finish up, you rub more oil in, and it just keeps the surface nice and smooth. And I don't know, it's personal preference when it comes to palettes. I also have something that people like a lot, which is a ceramic tile. And you can get them at the store, at the hardware store, for like $1. And that's an option. People like those. And glass is also a popular one. So just a piece of glass from a picture frame. Usually the glass is a little bit thin, but usually people can come up with pieces of glass. That's the most, I would say, glass palettes are the most popular. So the next thing, now this is a medium that I like, and it's just on the table. Let me go over some of the brushes. So the brushes are important. These are hog's bristle brushes, and it's useful to sort of know what you're shopping for if it comes to that. The bristles are stiff and heavy and coarse, and these brushes don't really feel like you're going to be able to do a whole lot with them, but you'll be surprised. They're kind of they're the brushes that oil paint is kind of made for, and they teach you how to properly load the brush with paint. And so they're pretty useful. This is a hog's bristle fan brush, and I know they get a weird reputation from the Bob Ross painting movies, but they're actually quite useful. If you really need to load a brush, there's nothing better than a fan brush. Now, I'll come back to the shapes in a second. But this is there's a whole bunch of different looks when it comes to synthetic brushes. I have one here, and I have another one. This brush I use for underpaintings and for just making sure that I'm getting like nice crisp edges on my marks. This one I use for blending. It's very soft. It has this like Taclon synthetic hair, and it's just wonderful for blending. This is sable. This is a Kolinsky sable, and Kolinsky sable is just sort of the highest quality soft haired brush that you can get. And you'll, at the store, most of the natural hairs that aren't hog are going to be more for watercolor, but you might find some sables at the store. But mostly what you'll find at like the local art store or art supply section of a store is going to be synthetic. But I really like these sables, so I have a lot of those. And then these two are made out of the same thing, but this is a brush called a liner. And if you're needing to get some quality in your line work, a very small brush with long hairs allows you to load the brush, and you'll be able to do all sorts of nice line work. So back to the shapes. This is called a bright. It's a flat brush with it's a flat brush with short hairs, and it's specifically for scrubbing. So taking paint off, putting it on thin. You're not really doing a lot of articulate work with a bright brush. This is a flat brush, and it's for putting the paint on. It has a lot of hair, so you can load it with a lot of paint, and you can do very controlled moves with it. This is a filbert. Both of these are filberts. A filbert is a flat brush with long hair and a curved tip. So you can do line work on a larger scale with these. These are my favorite brushes. I paint 99% of everything with filberts. And the brush sizes and shapes are personal preference. I should say the shapes are personal preference. Size is dictated by what you're up to. I tend to lean towards smaller brushes, even though I know I should use bigger ones. And I'm going to encourage you guys to use larger ones. The rule of thumb is pick out the brush you think that's right for the job, and then go 2 sizes up. And that's probably the one that you should be using. This is a round brush that's in relatively poor condition. I found it in the classroom because I don't have one with me. But anyway, that's a usable brush. Round brushes tend to not last that long. Again, the fan brush for happy trees and whatever else you want to do with it. You can load you wouldn't believe how much paint you can get in one load if you're really painting heavy. And it also, especially on canvas, where there's like a textured weave, the blending options that you have with a fan brush are really, really awesome. When you go to clean up, you'll need some glass jars. Now I happen to have this. You can buy this. It doesn't have a label. It's been worn off. This is called a silicoil, I believe, but it's not airtight. So if you're traveling with this, with mineral spirits in it, it's going to get all over everything. So make sure it doesn't spill. But it has a little coil inside, and when the pigment gets cleaned out, it settles to the bottom, and then you always have clean mineral spirits to work with. And that's like $6 or $7 at the store. Mineral spirits you can buy it at the hardware store by the gallon. The art supply stores will totally rip you off when it comes to odorless mineral spirits. What's the name of the Gamsol? I'm blanking on the name, but some of the brand name mineral spirits, terpenoid, that's the one. They're like marked up 500%. And if you go to the hardware store, you can get a gallon for like $10. And at the art store, it'll be more like 50. And you can, if you're just in painting one, let's say, you can just go and get a quart, and it'll last you a really long time. And if you have 2 glass jars, I'm not set up to show you this, but you can recycle the mineral spirits back and forth. So if you have a jar with dirty mineral spirits in it, you let the pigment settle out overnight and then pour off the clean mineral spirits into a clean jar. Use that one, and after you're finished painting, you just pour everything always back into the dirty jar, and the pigment will collect at the bottom, but it'll clean itself every night. And you just keep using it. You can recycle a quart of turpentine for years by doing that. Or just get one of these guys and it does the recycling for you. I have some paper towels here that are kind of used, but these blue shop towels you should get those from the hardware store too. They're about $1 for a roll of these. And when you're scrubbing with them, they don't break down. They're lint-free. So that's really good. Most of the paper towels you'll come across are just going to break up into your paint and cause little bits and bumps and maybe things that you don't need. So that's all the props that I have with me. That's a pretty good explanation of the materials and what you guys are going to need. If you have more questions about this kind of stuff or what's available locally, at least where I live, feel free to send me an email. I'm